build in the near term, and then what are the things that you guys dream about, or like is a sign of success for you if somebody comes out and builds the thing, right? When you're working on a project in the early days, I'm sure you and Moots have like had a conversation about like, wouldn't it be really cool if somebody built this thing? So like, what's that thing, and what's the thing you want people to start building on it like right away?
Yeah, there are a couple things actually. I think like right now, some of the stuff that people are doing on it that is very cool is there's there's a team that's currently trying to build CDPs on top of it. They're called like Orbit CDP. And there's a couple kids from like I think Columbia or not Columbia, but some other NYU university.
I think it's
But
Cornell.
oh, it's Cornell, yeah. But they like CDP protocols at the base layer are just a lending and borrowing platform. You can just use a lending pool with it and just have a custom oracle that reports or oracle aggregator that reports your CDP token price, and then you just have a contract that manages minting new like stable coins or CDP tokens for people to borrow into the lending pool, and that just makes it reduces your tech risk surface a lot because um, you're no longer responsible for managing all of that like debt and like the liquidations and all the other stuff that goes in with when you're actually like handling uh, managing like a debt and collateral platform. You can just shovel all that into the lending protocol, and then all you're in charge of doing is just managing like your CDP supply and your Oracle and like your interest rates, so that and we'll even do the interest rate management for you if you want to use like a iController method for it. Um, so it just makes it a lot easier to focus on what your core product is, and which, if you're a CDP, your core product is like providing a useful stablecoin, and like finding liquidity for it and integrating it into the rest of the ecosystem. And you can just focus on that, and then have our protocol handle the hard parts. So I think that's really cool, and I'm excited to see more teams using Blend as a primitive in that way. Kind of in the same way, like when we were envisioning Blend, we kind of wanted like in the same way that Uniswap's a core primitive on Ethereum, and a lot of protocols just build on top of Uniswap as like a liquidity layer for the protocol. I guess a different kind of liquidity layer, but like an AMM portion for the protocol. We wanted Blend to be that for the Sorbonne ecosystem, so that instead of having like 20 different people trying to manage their own lending and borrowing, Blend could just do it all and just hopefully accelerate the ecosystem way faster. So that's what I'm excited about right now. And then in terms of the future, I think in the medium term, I'm really excited for some of the teams that are building real world asset protocols on top of Blend. We're seeing a lot of interest from people that are trying to finance like SME loans in Africa. That's QuickPay, so that they're interested in doing that. And then like other teams that are interested in remittance financing. And Blend can just serve as a liquidity venue for all of those real world use cases. You just have some sort of collateral token, which just can be normally it would just be the actual real world assets. So you'd package a bunch of these loans and tokenize them, and then use them as collateral in a lending pool. And then you can finance more loans using your loan book as collateral. So I think that's going to be a really great way for a lot of these companies that are using Stellar as their financial rails to also use Stellar as their liquidity provider to build their business faster and pump more capital into these emerging markets. And then it'll also just provide more real ways to get interest on Stellar. Like uh, leverage on crypto assets isn't really enough a lot of the time to get uh, tokens to stay in a blockchain. Like if you look at how much interest is paid by people that want leverage in crypto assets, like across the crypto ecosystem, it's like a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of liquidity that's required to finance like businesses or remittances or any of these real world applications. So excited for that. And then I think long term, one of my like I wouldn't call it a pet project, but it's something that I really want to see built in the ecosystem. Is I want to see a synth project primarily directed at currencies, because a lot of the issues that I think Stellar runs into when you have someone that's setting up like a stable coin in Nigeria or something is it's hard to get someone to make a liquid market for that stablecoin and USD. But what you could do is with Blend is you could set up just like a bunch of different CDP pools that allow people to mint like synthetic Naira and synthetic USD and synthetic like I don't know Euro, and then you have a separate component. This would be like external to Blend that allows you to swap these stable coins for each other at Oracle rate. So that like manages the market for you, and then you just need to have like liquidity pools that allow you to swap out of the synthetic into the actual like fiat-backed stable coin. So you go from like synthetic USD to USDC. And that sort of portion of liquidity is much easier to build because you can just do like a maker DAO model where you have allow people to mint additional like CDP token against like USDC CDP token pairs or AMM tokens. So you can get a lot of liquidity very, very fast just by using leverage. So I think that would make it much easier to spin up a successful anchor on Stellar. And hopefully someone comes along and builds it with Blend. If you want to build that, talk to me. I'll like help workshop with you.
Awesome. Yeah, the one that I spent a lot of time thinking, or has recently been spending some time thinking about is, we don't have like a native staking mechanic on Stellar, but we do have a lot of a growing number of real world assets that throw off yield. And so the mechanics of being able to use, basically like tokenized treasuries as our, liquid staking tokens, is really interesting to me because I think as a collateral, those become very, very interesting, because you can build all sorts of like stuff on top of them. But we've got to get the those real world asset tokens to be able to like be more freely held, right, or transferable and all of those things before they're able to be actually utilized in something like Blend or Sorbonne more generally.
Yeah, I talked to the Franklin Templeton people about that a while ago because like I would love to see a Franklin Templeton what's their I'm blanking on their token name right now. Benji, yeah.
Benji.
Yeah, a Benji pool set up where like people can borrow against Benji and get more Benji and put it back into the pool and do the whole looping thing. But yeah, it's just like it's such a because like I feel like if you're a real world asset issuer that's building on Stellar, you're very, very regulation conscious. So I think there's probably a lot of hard questions to answer about like custody and how do we define this smart contract that is living on a blockchain that no one owns because like Blend is ungoverned, it's a primitive, no one owns it, there's no governance token, it's non-upgradable. So it is very much just like a pure DeFi protocol. But like, how do you define that and get like regulators comfortable with your tokens now sitting in that? It's like that's probably a very long process. But yes, would love to see that.
Yeah, and I guess that brings up the question. With the like Stellar Asset contract, we were like very conscientious about how we, you know, made those tokens transferable across the sort of Stellar Sorbonne boundary and respecting the sort of rules and permissions that have been put in place. How do you guys think about like permission pools and like if a let's say like use a Franklin Templeton for example, right? Wanted to set up a pool where only their KYC users or whatever the case, like people that were eligible. So like say they can only the only people who can hold it are in the US. And so they want to verify that, it's US users, people that they've like signed off on can get into the pool. Can you guys support that with Blend?
We thought about doing that a while back, but we think that that's best handled at the asset layer. So if Franklin Templeton wanted to set up a pool that like only KYC users could lend like USD to, you just set up a USDC wrapper that had KYC on it, and then that would be the asset that's lent in the pool. So anyone that's like KYC can then go borrow that and just unwrap it into USDC. So it's like one more step, but you can abstract that pretty easily with the UI, and then we don't have to add additional complexity into Blend. So that's how we thought about it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Awesome. Let's see, what else should we chat about? I think the like I'd love to hear a bit about your all's journey, sort of in the ecosystem. So like what's been the experience building in the Stellar community and the Stellar ecosystem? I mean, you guys were probably one of the first, if not the first, to start engaging as we sort of announced and launched Sorbonne because as we mentioned that you guys were already working on similar projects with like turrets and things like that. So like, what's that journey been like for you all?
It's been like interesting, but I use that in a good way. Like it's been really really neat watching the Sorbonne spec change over time and watching the community grow. And like there are also definitely times where it's been like frustrating. like especially like there were like a couple. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but there were a couple times like during the building process where we just had to like refactor everything because something in the VM changed, and all of a sudden we're like, wait, like okay, our protocol no longer makes sense. So rather than shipping something stupid, we're gonna refactor to take advantage of whatever the change just was. Um, and like I think like one example of that is we were very careful about um, kind of contract dependency because like one day when Soroban's paralyzed, we don't want there to be resource contention between two users using different pools. So pools are like the lowest level dependency. If you call one pool, it will never like result in a resource conflict with someone calling another pool. Which and I think part of the reason that that was created as part of kind of a fairly large refactor on our end when we realized that like, hey, we should take advantage of this, and the way that this is currently set up is not going to fly. So they were like, yeah. So it was very cool watching things change and like watching uh, key decisions be made about how the VM was set up, which also created some challenges, but that was still a sweet experience. And then watching the ecosystem grow has been really cool. That's been probably like my favorite part because yeah, when it started, it was probably just like the core devs and then like us and like one other team in the Discord, just asking questions. But um, I I've been watching new teams come into the Stellar ecosystem and be like legitimately very excited about building with Soroban and building on Stellar and saying like, wait, like this is actually a great ecosystem to build in. There's a lot of like great tooling. I can spin up a local network very easily. I can get tokens on testnet very easily. I've got very good testing tooling. Um, that's been really awesome. And that's something that like I've been in like the Stellar ecosystem for a long time, and I don't think I've ever seen as much. Or, I mean, I definitely haven't seen as much interest as I have in like the last few months now that Soroban is live, and yeah, it's been cool to watch that.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I mean it's been a like you said, it's been a long journey. It's more than 2 years at this point, and yeah, part of the interesting bit of that experience has been the you know like building in the open with the community engagement, and then like listening to that community feedback and the things that have needed to be changed, and like the sort of downflow of implications to that, right? It's like we learn, oh, actually this thing we thought and we're planning and building around, it doesn't work with the designs and the ways that the community want to use it, so we have to like make a change, and it changes everything. And so yeah, it's been I can understand that frustration. I also, but I'm also like really excited about where we've ended up, because like you said, I've seen the feedback from developers in the ecosystem and the just commentary on Twitter and other places of people just raving about some of the stuff that's been built and the ease of use and things like that. I mean, I guess you mentioned some of the things that we've done well around like documentation and tooling and all those things. Like, what do you think of the highlight? Like the thing, because I know you've got experience and exposure to lots of other ecosystems. I mean, as a student of DeFi, you're always looking at all these other stuff that people are building in other ecosystems. Like, what's it like the elevator pitch you would give to a builder in another ecosystem about like why Soroban is awesome? And then selfishly, I'd love to hear what we could do better. What's missing? What do we mess up? That type of thing.
Let's see. Elevator pitch. Uh, I'd probably tell them that you can write in Rust on a very low fee blockchain with just really good dev tooling around testing, and it'll take you like a month to get a DeFi protocol stood up. It's like there's some weird stuff that you have to learn, especially around like storage limits and just the storage model is like pretty unintuitive. But just the fact that you are writing in Rust in a very like low fee environment makes it much easier to be creative with your code and write interesting things that probably wouldn't fly in other ecosystems. And then also it's a very sane like, and that doesn't sound like a that crazy of a thing, but if you go into most other ecosystems, like if you go right on Solana, like Solana's cool and all. Like I do like what they're doing